George Bailey, I'll love you till the day I die.
Mary whispered that sweet message into young George's bad ear and to one of the most iconic films of all time, It's a Wonderful Life. But do you remember what he was doing when that classic line was uttered? He was scooping chocolate ice cream with coconut. Sarah McLachlan claims that Your Love is Better Than Ice Cream in her 1993 hit song Ice Cream. The song compares being in love with indulging one of the greatest desserts of all time, all while being a staple emo song for 90s teens and young adults. Ice cream is more than just a tasty treat. It's been featured in famous scenes from movies and television. From Forrest Gump,
Lieutenant Dan, I got you some ice cream. Lieutenant Dan, ice cream.
to Pulp Fiction,
You think I can have a sip of that?
Be my guest.
I gotta know what a $5 shake tastes like.
to the horror B-movie Ice Cream Man. It's loved by the good guys, the bad guys, and everyone in between. For centuries, people have been finding new ways to enjoy the pleasure of an ice-cold, creamy treat on a hot day. This time, on The History Behind, we're learning about the history behind and putting a cherry on top of everyone's favorite frozen treat. This is the history behind ice cream. To start, there are a few very important questions that we have to figure out. Like, what is ice cream and where did it come from? What's the difference between a sherbet, sorbet, and ice cream? How many styles of ice cream can there possibly be? There isn't an exact answer to some of those questions, but let's start with a few basic definitions. Ice cream is a sweetened, frozen food typically eaten as a snack or dessert. It may be made from milk or cream and is flavored with a sweetener, either sugar or an alternative, and a spice such as cocoa or vanilla, or with fruit such as strawberries or peaches. Sorbet is also called water ice. It's a frozen dessert made from sugar-sweetened water with flavoring, typically fruit juice, fruit puree, wine, liqueur, or honey. Frozen yogurt is a frozen dessert made from yogurt and sometimes other dairy and non-dairy products. Frozen yogurt is a frozen product containing the same basic ingredients as ice cream, but contains live bacterial cultures. Gelato is the common word in Italian for all kinds of ice cream. In English, it specifically refers to a frozen dessert of Italian origins. Artisanal gelato in Italy generally contains between 6 to 9% butterfat, which is lower than the other styles of frozen dessert. A sherbet is a frozen juice and sugar mixture served in a dessert or between courses of a meal to cleanse the palate. It's a frozen dessert made with fruit juice added to milk or cream, egg white, or gelatin. Soft serve is an ice cream debuted in 1926 when the Taylor Company developed its first machine. Soft serve contains much more air than other varieties, and that airiness allows the product to be light and easily manipulated through a machine, resulting in the classic twisted shape. Philadelphia-style ice cream, also called American style or New York style, perfects a recipe with only cream and sugar. Rolled ice cream is a style involving rolling ice cream by placing a liquid base onto an anti-griddle kept at 10 degrees below zero. Liquid is poured directly onto the anti-griddle and smoothed into thin layers. Strings of each layer are then rolled up using a scraper. Each roll stands vertically in the cup. Slow churn is a blending process that pushes the fat molecules through a very small space, stretching them so the ice cream tastes like it contains more fat. Now that we know a bit more about what ice cream is, where did it come from? There are many myths out there related to the history of ice cream. Was it invented by the ancient Greeks, the Romans, the Chinese? Could it possibly have been America that invented the greatest frozen treat of all time? The truth is, we don't really know the exact moment ice cream was born, but here is a rough timeline based on kept records in various historical accounts. In China, around 200 BCE, there are records of people enjoying a combination of frozen milk and rice. During the reign of Nero in Rome from 54 to 68 AD, runners were supposedly sent up to the cold Italian Alps to retrieve snow for iced drinks and treats. During the Tang Dynasty, which lasted from 618 to 907, emperors were the first reported people to eat a frozen milk confection. These treats were made from cow, goat, or buffalo milk and heated with flour. Aromatic substances were added to enhance flavor and texture. In medieval times, an icy refreshment similar to modern-day sherbet was being produced and consumed by the Arabs. They were flavored with cherries and pomegranates. Persians experimented with this dessert and called it sharbat. This is believed to be the closest ancestor to ice cream and linguistically the origin for the word sherbet. As travel became more widespread and cultures were expanding and discovering one another, food and drink moved from place to place. The Italians and French also enjoyed cool flavored drinks much like the Middle Eastern and Asian countries. Conflicting reports claim that Marco Polo returned to Italy after his travels in the Far East with a recipe that we would recognize as sherbet today. Historians believe that recipe probably morphed into ice cream during the 16th century. In the 17th century, King Charles I had creamed ice served at his royal tables. Catherine de' Medici, wife of Henry II, is also credited with introducing ice cream to France in the 1550s. In 1660, ice cream was made available to the public. For hundreds of years, access to ice cream was only made available to the wealthy and the elite. It was an item of luxury and status. But eventually, the public was able to produce their own, and new versions of the sweet treat took off like wildfire. A 17th century man named Antonio Latini was the first person to write down any sort of official recipe for a sorberto, or sorbet. The first cafe in Paris, Café Procope, served a recipe for blending milk, butter, and eggs, also known as gelato. The cafe was a famous meeting place of the minds, a hangout spot for intellectuals like Victor Hugo and Benjamin Franklin. The cafe's version of gelato is credited by many food historians as the official birthplace of ice cream. The gelato was served in small porcelain bowls and was a hit with cafe guests. In France, experimentation grew, and a frozen dessert called fromage emerged. This dessert did not contain any cheese, despite its name, but it did include cream, sugar, and orange flower waters. The freezing process was also toyed with, as a technique using air was created to make a fluffier texture. By the 18th century, frozen fromage was incredibly popular throughout France. A letter written in 1744 by a guest of Maryland Governor William Bladden was the first account of ice cream in the New World. May 12, 1777 marks the very first advertisement for ice cream in the New York Gazette. George Washington spent $200 on ice cream in the summer of 1790, according to inventory records revealed after his death. This is the equivalent of over $6,400 today. And Thomas Jefferson was said to have had a favorite ice cream recipe. During James Madison's second inaugural banquet at the White House, Dolly Madison served strawberry ice cream. Manufacturing ice cream soon became an industry in America, pioneered in 1851 by a Baltimore milk dealer named Jacob Fussell. Like other American industries, ice cream production increased because of technological innovations, including steam power, mechanical refrigeration, the homogenizer, electric motors, packing machines, and new freezing processes and equipment. 1874 was when the American soda shop was born. Counter-service soda fountains were introduced in 1903 when drugstores were attracting thirsty afternoon customers. They started serving sandwiches and small lunches along with fountain drinks, malts, and ice cream. During this time, laws governing the use of drugs and medication in beverages was non-existent, so caffeine and cocaine were regularly introduced in fountain drinks and ice cream. In 1903, Italian immigrant and ice cream maker Italo Marchione filed a patent for, quote, a molding apparatus for forming ice cream cups and the like. His patent had handles and was not cone-shaped at all. At the 1904 World's Fair, Syrian waffle maker Ernst Hamwe was making a wafer dessert called zalabia when an ice cream maker across from his stand ran out of bowls. He suggested they used his waffles, and so the waffle cone was born. During World War II, ice cream was served to the troops. In 1945, a frozen ice cream parlor was built for sailors as they sailed the Western Pacific. After the war, with dairy rationing lifted, Americans consumed more ice cream than ever. Over time, it seems to have crossed paths with snow cones and other beverages. Did a snow cone become a milkshake and then become ice cream? The history is still a little tricky to parse through. The important thing that is today, we enjoy ice cream in just about every way possible. One of the reasons we love ice cream is like a blank canvas. We can put whatever we want in it, on it, or next to it. What are some of your favorite toppings? Hot fudge, sprinkles, cookie dough, whipped cream, marshmallows, candy, chocolate sauce, chopped nuts. Did we miss anything? Do you have a personal favorite? Well, what if you consider yourself to be an adventurous eater? Would you be interested in trying an unusual and exotic flavor in the form of ice cream? If so, you're apparently not alone. Ice cream innovators around the world continue to create unique flavors that stand out from the rest. How about Kraft macaroni and cheese ice cream from the Van Leeuwen Ice Cream Company in Brooklyn? How about Thanksgiving dinner from the ice cream store in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware? Dill pickle from Dakota Drug Store in Stanley, North Dakota? Or perhaps lobster from Ben & Bill's Chocolate Emporium in Massachusetts? You may not be willing to try one of these flavors, or maybe you would, but the fact remains that from gourmet concoctions to prepackaged street treats, ice cream has always been a blank canvas for new and unique flavors. But now, what about ice cream brands? Are you a person that loves Cold Stone over Ben & Jerry's? Do you only go for Bluebell ice cream while shopping in the grocery store? Some of the most popular brands in the world include Baskin-Robbins, Ben & Jerry's, Haagen-Dazs, Blue Bunny, Bluebell, Talenti, Magnum, and Tillamook. According to Zippia, the career expert website, the largest ice cream company in the United States is Bluebell Creameries, with a revenue of over $671 million. As of 2022, the U.S. ice cream industry has a market size of over $9.9 billion. 90% of all American households eat ice cream, with the average American consuming over 20 pounds of ice cream per year. The global ice cream market is projected to grow at an annual growth rate of 4.2% through 2030. But the big question is, will ice cream always remain steadfast in our hearts? Most likely. There's no stopping this dessert. Before we leave, here are 3 quick facts you can use at parties to impress people about ice cream. July is National Ice Cream Month and was declared so by President Ronald Reagan in 1984. The third Sunday of July is National Ice Cream Day. Legends say that Charles I of England ordered the beheading of his chef after he was blamed for releasing into the public the secret recipe for the king's favorite ice cream. Ice cream sundaes were invented in the late 19th century when it became illegal to sell ice cream sodas on a Sunday in the American town of Evanston, Illinois. To get around this, traders replaced the soda with syrup and called it as a dessert an ice cream sundae, with a Y. The first newspaper advertisement featured an image of a cherry sundae. They soon replaced the final Y with an E to avoid upsetting any religious leaders who may have taken issue with it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The History Behind. If you've enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Join us next time as we explore the history behind the bicycle.